Hi everyone, welcome to my DIY floating deck build for uneven ground. I wish I had an even lawn like the majority of the floating deck vids that you see, but I don't. So here's how I built mine in the hopes it makes building yours easier. First, design the layout. I really recommend throwing in some chairs knocked over by the wind for that extra real feeling. Have the design figured out? Good. Next, go out and buy more footers than you'll possibly need. Buy enough to make the neighbors think you have either an alien cemetery or an undiscovered megalithic site in your backyard. And in all seriousness, I actually used all of these on my build. Having never built a deck before, I figured more footers equals more stability, so how could I go wrong there? Plus, if I made a mistake, I could fix it simply by moving a footer. Levels, and plenty of them. You will need them. You will love them. They and a square will help you overcome the landscape, regardless of your level of experience, if you simply take your time. I started framing the deck from the corner closest to the ground. Once I had the footer level, the rest of the build grew from there, which you'll see. The red arrow was my starting point, while the blues show the levels. Is it too obvious to add that you must level every footer first? That the deck construction follows the path of leveled footers, as it were? Hopefully it's not, but if it wasn't, then there. Now you know. Progressing well. As the frame grows, take your time. Make sure everything is level. It's worth it. Here's a different view of the work in progress. You'll notice boards across the corners. These are a great way of checking if your work is level as the frame grows. Plus, they can tell you if something new you added moves something already in place. My deck was built around a fire pit, so I had to know where the main box or frame would be compared to the cutout feature. You'll see what I mean. The blue arrows show where the final side of the main box would go. And there's the final side of the main box, which I later broke down into 3 smaller sections. Building a deck in your spare time sometimes means working by moonlight. Enjoy it. It's awesome. It also means that sometimes you're only going to be able to add a single board. But a single board is still progress. So if you can do just that one thing, do it. Fast forward a bit. Remember I said I broke down the main area into 3 sections? Here's what it looks like. Typically, joists are about 16 inches apart. I made mine closer because I wanted to. Again, I think I kind of over-engineered this, which you'll definitely see an example of later on. The joists are done, but I had materials left over, so I took some of the footers and 4x4s and placed them under and up against the joists for even more structural support. Not typical, I know, but this is my first deck, so I thought, hey, why not? Okay, back to that cutout feature that I mentioned before. Once the main box was done, I finalized where I wanted the feature and boxed in the sides accordingly. The frame is nearly complete and looking pretty good. The areas on the sides of the fire pit that feature just need, at this point, the rest of their joists. Remember what we started with? Getting closer. Now for the decking. I laid them out first to let them dry and make sure I had no warped boards. Turns out during this build, I had a lot of them. Exchanged quite a few boards during the process. Pressure treated wood doesn't always keep its shape once it dries, and sometimes you don't know what it's going to do until it dries out. So always give it that chance to kind of breathe a little bit, and never settle for warped wood. There's a joke in there someplace, I think. Now, before I permanently attached the decking, I did go back and finished placing the weed barrier. You'll notice in some of the earlier picks, I actually already had weed barrier under the footers. I'd level the area, put the barrier down, and then put the footer in. And obviously, this is the time when you want to finish that when you still have good access to the ground. And once that was done, only then did I start securing the decking. For me, measuring and then cutting the decking boards one at a time worked the best. I tried just attaching them and then moving the saw straight along. I don't know. I have no idea why. Failed for me every single time. You can see where I kept cutting into the frame of the deck. So I measured the boards, cut them one at a time, then attached them. But hey, you do what works for you. Pizza and beer for me once the last board was placed. Appropriate christening, I think. Time to finish the railings. I made a simple template, and with that, I marked and drilled the holes. And finished! Well, except for staining, but that comes later. The deck came out much better than I had hoped for or even envisioned. And 2 years later, it's still level. Yeah, I can't complain about that. I hope this helps with your own build. I did buy a couple of guides on deck building, and they helped fill some of the gaps in my knowledge, despite not having the type of deck I was building, which was on uneven ground. But gathering knowledge is never a bad thing. I'm just saying. If you like channels with unpredictable content and random uploads, and reverse punch that subscribe button and throat kick alike. Thanks for watching.